guys, it's Glenn from glenscarcollection.com, and here's my 2-year review of my 2017 Porsche 911 Carrera. Alright, but first let's do some acceleration. We're getting on the highway here. So I have the 7-speed manual. And let me turn on the sport exhaust. Alright. I'll go through why I chose this car, if it's been reliable, what the maintenance has been, and the value I bought it at, and the current value for the car. I was shopping, I had sold the McLaren 570S, if you follow the channel, and I wanted to go back to a reliable car to do kind of my Sunday morning drives, and obviously the more usable the car was, the more I'd be able to drive it. So I didn't necessarily want an exotic this time. I basically wanted a car that I could drive for my drives, would have good brakes, good handling, be a manual transmission car, and also be comfortable if I just kind of wanted to cruise around. So I was really close to buying, believe it or not, which is not a manual, an AMG GTS. I just love that car. I did a YouTube review on it. I thought, hey, this would be, I think that car is going to hold its value long term because it's such a good driving car, and they're not going to make twin turbo V8s anytime soon, or certainly a car like that has a pretty aggressive stance, ride, all that kind of stuff. And I almost bought one, and it was white, and a good thing I didn't because my friend owns a white one. But my kid convinced me when I showed them the picture that this is what I was going to get, a white GTS. They were like, Daddy, you know, you want a Miami blue Porsche, why would you buy that? And I'm like, well, there's no, you know, I can't find a Miami blue manual. There aren't any of those. So I did one more search literally the next day before I went to buy that white AMG GTS, and this car came up, which was amazing. It was only 100 miles from my house. It wound up being the same dealer. I bought this car first, the same Porsche Audi dealer in Pennsylvania that I also bought the R8 V10 manual from. So it turned out to be a good experience for both cars. So basically I was looking for, you know, a 911. I also considered a Cayman or a Boxster and a Boxster Spider. But number one, I wanted Miami blue and a manual transmission. And I said kind of whatever comes up first. Then I focused my search on 911s. So Miami blue is available for 4 years, 2017 to 2020. 2020, that was the 992. So the first year of a 992, you could get Miami blue manual. But the majority of the cars, 2017 to 2019, are the 991.2s. And if you want a GT3 in Miami blue, believe it or not, it's not hard to get one. There's plenty of Miami blues on the GT3. Maybe because if it's a track car, it's a flashier car. Maybe it's an enthusiast, you know, model, so maybe they're more likely to choose Miami blue. But on the Carrera, whether it's the base, the 4, the 4S, the S, the GTS, it's very hard to get Miami blue with a manual transmission. So I forgot, let me just take this thing off my hand here. Still have problems with my thumb from that hockey injury. So let's take a drive here. So Miami blue is hard to get in a manual. I think there's about 300 or so Miami blue cars, non-GT3s on the base, the Carrera S, and if 90% of them are PDKs, then there's like 30 manual Carreras, counting the S and the GTS. So correct me if I'm wrong in the comments with those numbers, but that's the research I did based on the percentages, because only 3% of the cars were Miami blue. There's a lot more Miami blues, like I said, if you can step up to afford a GT3. And I drove a GT3. I drove a Miami blue GT3, and I tried to trade my McLaren 570S even for it, but you know, because the sticker for the Miami blue GT3 manual that I drove, and it was selling for sticker. This is when, after they've been out for a few months, and the dealer had like 9 of them in stock, manuals, because everybody bought the manuals and were trying to flip them, and they couldn't get above sticker. So yes, there was a time a couple years ago, before COVID, that you could get a, let me take the radar off here, that you could get a Miami Blue GT3 manual for sticker. So I test drove one at a Porsche dealership. It was $165,000, and I wanted to trade the McLaren even for it because they were worth similar money, but they really lowballed me in my trade. They offered me like, I don't know, $125 for my McLaren. So I said, I'm not gonna, if it's worth the same price, pay the difference. I probably should have sold it right then and then, paid a little bit more if I had to, and gotten that, because the GT3s went up, especially Miami Blue manual, went up to over 200. Though they are starting to come down in price, you are seeing different colors in that maybe 180 range now, so they have come down in price. So I said manual Miami Blue, because I really wanted that color, because they're all black or silver, and I didn't care if it was a base, a S or GTS, whatever came out first, I'd buy it. So this was a base. Obviously, a base is cheaper, so save some money to boot. I could always tune it and get more power and basically equal. I wouldn't have the cooling of a GTS, but I can certainly get the power of a GTS. So I bought this, and Porsche gives a 4-year, 50,000-mile warranty, and this was a CPO. So I actually, as long as I didn't hit 50,000 miles in the first 4 years from when it was sold new, you get an extra year, and essentially the mileage is unlimited. So what happens is, say in year 3 you hit the 50,000 mile point, then your CPO kicks in as soon as you hit that 50,000 miles, or when that original 4-year warranty expires. So it's essentially your 4-year 50,000 mile warranty, and I'm going through a neighborhood here, so I'll show off the sport exhaust. It's whatever expires first. So I bought this car with 8,000 miles, and it was 2 years old, I think, when I bought it. So I had 2 years left on the 4-year 50,000 mile warranty, plus I had a year CPO. So essentially, as long as I didn't hit, which I didn't, hit the 50,000 mile mark, I essentially have a 3-year unlimited mile warranty on this car. So that was great. I said, I'm going to drive as much as I can, I'm going to drive it as hard as I can, and everything will be covered by warranty. So now this is supposed to be my 2-year review. It's actually, 2 years was actually like Memorial Day. So I'm over 2 years now. So I have less than a year left remaining on the warranty, but unlimited miles. The first year I bought this car, I bought it with 8,000 miles. I put another 8,000 miles on it. So I doubled the mileage in the first year I had it. So I drove it everywhere. I didn't take it to work, but I drove it as much as I could. Did a lot of miles on the weekends, mainly weekend driving, my Saturday and Sunday morning drives, and got that 8,000 miles in just 1 year. And I don't even drive it over the winter. And typically we have late springs. I won't drive it once the salt hits. The salt hits in December, and the salt's probably around deep into April. So for those 3 or 4 months, I don't really drive it unless the roads are clear. Let's see. It had new tires when I bought it. Believe it or not, the rear tires were replaced at about 6,000 miles with the first owner. I'm the second owner. So I got new tires as part of the CPO, new rear tires. So I think the fronts are original, if I remember. And at about 18,000 miles, I replaced the rear. So at the beginning of this year, I've been doing annual oil changes. All the service was up to date when I bought it. So I've done annual oil changes and did another set of rear tires. I forget what the rear tires cost, maybe $800 for 2, counting mounting and balancing. I have the optional 20-inch Carrera wheels, so obviously 20-inch tires are more expensive than 19-inch tires. As far as fun to drive, this is my go-to car. So when I do drives, I guess I've had 911s for probably about 15 years now. I had the my first was a 996 C4S. Then, as you know, the 993 Turbo I had for many years. That doubled in value. I used that to get the McLaren. And this is my go-to car. So even though mid-engine may be better for handling, I'm so used to rear engine, I'm more confident driving a rear engine car than a mid-engine car, even though I have the R8's mid-engine, the NSX mid-engine. So when I do a spirited drive, this is my go-to car because it never runs hot. Even though it's a base and has the smaller brakes, the brakes have never faded. Maybe they would on the track, but certainly I've driven it super hard on the street with repeated stops from high speeds, and never once have the brakes faded. They're still cross-drilled rotors. And I'm just confident in the handling. So this car is probably the most reliable car, bar none, that I've ever owned. So this is kind of my go-to car for a drive, and it would certainly be that for long distance. The options that this car has, we'll go over the options. It's got everything I would expect except for the sunroof. It does have a sunroof, it's body color. The sunroof on the 991s kind of goes over the car, so the opening isn't as big as the sunroof opening. You still kind of see some of the roof there. So I would just not spec the sunroof, but I know 90% of the people probably want the sunroof. So it has sport exhaust, manual seats, so you can do power like, I guess left and rear, but forward and back is manual. So I guess like as far as your back goes and the incline, you could do power with that. So they're the base seats essentially. I don't have Sport Chrono, and I'm surprised. I didn't know I didn't have Sport Chrono. Well, I knew I didn't have Sport Chrono, but I didn't know what that meant until I drove home. So what Sport Chrono means is that you, let's do a little acceleration here. You don't get the rev matching. Every rev match you hear in this car is me doing it. So Sport Chrono gives you the automatic rev matching, which you could shed off. And I think, you know, obviously my other cars, the S2000 NSX, the R8, they don't have rev matching. So I kind of like, I didn't like when my M2 had it because it was hard to turn off. And then when I would get in the 1M, it'd be hard to rev match that with the M2 all week long driving to work. It's rev matching for me. So it's kind of a good thing, but I didn't know until I was driving home. I'm like, wait a minute, I don't think this car is rev matching. And then I found out that if you don't have Sport Chrono, it doesn't rev match. Now, you want Sport Chrono on a PDK car because that's the only way you can get launch control. And I think if you definitely go for a PDK car, you're going to want launch control. Yeah, so the options it has is how I would spec it if I ordered it. You got the Sport Exhaust, which sounds pretty good. It's not fantastic, but I think it sounds a lot better than a car without the Sport Exhaust. And there's a button you can turn it on or off. I have the suspension. You can press the button and make it hard or soft. The ride is great. It does make a difference when you put the suspension on. It is much stiffer in the turns, but it's very comfortable if you drive in the soft mode. So I have the Sport Exhaust. Sport button is standards. So Sport Chrono actually would also give you Sport Plus, which I do not have. Just makes it a little crazier. I have heated and cooled seats, and the cooled seats were fantastic. So I drive this car a lot in the summer. It's like a couple times a week, and obviously a lot of miles on the weekends. And the cooled seats get like ice cold. The heated seats work great as well. Even the temperature, I usually keep my cars at about 65 degrees because I'm always warm. I like it to be cold. And here, you could, 70 degrees, you're freezing. So I could probably raise it more than 70 because that's how good the air conditioning works. I mean, it's a small space obviously, being a 2+2, so that's probably why the air conditioning works so good. The stereo, I have the Bose, which is optional, so the Burmeister is a step above. And, you know, I like, when I'm not listening to the engine, I love my tunes, so it really does sound really, really good with the Bose. I think the Bose is all you need, to be honest with you. Let's see, 7-speed manual. So for 7th gear, I don't use it that much, to be honest. I drove maybe 100, 200 miles this morning, and back roads and a little bit of highway. I never went to 7th gear once. So you really got to be over 65, and then you have no passing power. So I think the mileage is decent in this car. I'm not too concerned with gas mileage. If you are, you could certainly use 7th gear, but I almost never use it. Handling is fantastic. Tires again are going to be more expensive with the optional 20s. I have 19s or standard. See here, I have to do the rev matching. That's me, not the computer doing it for me. I love the steering wheel on the 991.2s. Apple CarPlay is on the 991.2s, and that makes a big difference if you're going to use this car a lot. If it's just weekends, who cares? But then obviously you can put Waze or your songs on the CarPlay, and it's much better, in my opinion, than the Porsche navigation. Reliability has been fantastic. It's under this 3-year unlimited mile warranty, and I have not, let me just plug in the thing here, I have not had any claims at the dealer, 0. It's not been back to the dealer for anything wrong with the car. It's been crazy reliable. Would I buy this car again? 100% I would buy this car again. Let me go over value. So I bought this in the middle of COVID. So it was May, I think pretty much Memorial Day weekend of 2020. So everything was still kind of closed. The dealership was just reopening. I bought this car sight unseen because a lot of times they'll list the car as Miami blue or some kind of color, and it won't be, they get it wrong. But I bought this car without even a picture posted because it said Miami blue, and I was desperate for a Miami blue manual. I'm so glad I did that and found this car. I got really lucky. And I even called the dealer. I'm like, you're 100% positive it's Miami blue. Show me some paperwork or the original window sticker, because I don't want to get there and it's midnight blue or some other blue color. And so I got a great price. This car, I think they were asking about $80,000 or $79,900. I offered them $75,000 and they accepted it, because everything was, the world was ending in May of 2020. Now, when I bought my R8 from the same dealership last year, which was October of 2021, I got offered $100,000 to trade this in, and I had double the miles. I had probably about 16,000 miles at that time, and I could have got $100,000 for this car going towards the R8. Now I look at retail values; they've come down a little bit, but not too much. I see base manuals, and again, they're all black or gray, selling for about $100,000. You'll find one with an accident at a skeevy dealer where you got to finance through them at 25%. They may sell it to you for $96,000, but most of the ones I see are selling or asking price $100,000 to $110,000 for a base manual with under 30,000 miles. And I still have under 20,000 miles right now. As I'm filming this, I have 19,200 miles. So I put how many miles on the car? 11,000. So that's typical. Usually the newest car I buy, I put the most miles on. So I put 8,000 miles on this the first year. The second year I've only put about 3,000, just because I have more cars. I got the R8, driving the S2000, drove the NSX a lot this year, trying to put as many miles on my daily driver, the M340iX drive, because I leased that. So I paid for all these miles that I can't use because I'm still working from home. So I'm way under the miles on that car, so I try to use excuses to drive that car because I only have like 9 months or so left on the lease. But this car is fantastic. On a scale of 1 to 10, I rated it 10. I honestly am a big believer in base 911s. Not so much anymore because you can't get the manual on the 992, but I'm a believer of getting a base manual, probably at least 15 grand. And especially with these turbos, you could easily tune it. So there's really no excuse that you have to pay over for the S, There's a million, nobody, unless you have a GT3 or GT2 RS or even a GT3 RS, nobody's going to look at your car at Cars and Coffee because you're going to show up for a million 911s. So I don't think anybody really cares whether you have a base or you have an S or you have a GTS. I don't really like the GTSs because I don't like the center lock wheels. I like to change my own wheels and tires. I haven't, but if I ever wanted to drive this car in the winter, I want to be able to change my own tires to get the winter set on, where I wouldn't be able to do if I had a center lock. I could do it, but I probably wouldn't want to take a chance of damaging the wheel. So it's been super reliable. It's very responsive with the turbos. Downsides to this car, the only downside doesn't sound that good because it's a turbo, and obviously the cars are expensive. Those are really the two downsides. But the Porsches now, the modern ones, are so reliable. And I'm telling you, this car is as fast as my 993 Turbo. My 993 Turbo is a little more brutal, the acceleration, because it was more of an on and off switch. And that's when they went to the all-wheel drive and the twin turbos with the 993s. And obviously that's certainly more collectible. That'll hold its value. But I think there's some value here for any manual 911 future value, and especially if it's a specialty color like Miami blue or some kind of paint to sample or color like that, obviously, than the run-of-the-mill black and silvers. So that's basically it, guys. I love this car. It's been reliable. It's cost me really nothing to own but tires, which of course you're going to pay. And you put enough miles on it, it'll be brakes and brake fluid and maintenance and oil changes and stuff like that. But yeah, that's probably twice as much as a normal car, but to me, it's worth every penny. And I think you can't go wrong with any Porsche. And if a 911 is out of your range, seriously consider a Cayman if you like coupes, or a Boxster if you like convertibles, because I think you get probably 80% of this experience for a lot less money. And I had a Cayman S, a first gen, an 08 S, and manual, and I absolutely loved it. All right, guys, one more acceleration. I'm going to end the video here. So what's next? Well, this car I like so much, I think I'm going to keep it, because if it was a base and it was black or silver, even though it's a manual, I'd probably sell it for something else. Maybe I'd sell it for a GT3 or something like that. But since it's my favorite color with my favorite transmission, and it's rear drive, so this isn't a 4, this is a rear drive, and I think it's just more fun. Though the all-wheel drive 911s certainly are better all year round, especially in the Northeast where I live. You can drive in the rain, snow, and stuff like that. This car really doesn't see bad weather, so since it's just a fun car and I'm not driving it with salt on the road and it doesn't see rain usually, to me, 100% you want the rear drive because it's just so much more fun to drive. And that's it. That's the video. So I love this car. I'd rate it on a 10 in probably every category. And, you know, handling, looks, reliability, you name it. Downsides, you know, everything works. That's an upside. Downsides, just probably price and noise with the turbo. It sounds more like a vacuum cleaner, but my 993 sounded that way as well, so what are you gonna do? All right, guys, remember to like, share, and subscribe. If there's a car you want me to review, always leave that in the comments. Keep doing it. And if we get enough comments, then I can go to somebody and say, look, everybody wants to see whatever, GT4, you name it, and then hopefully I'll be able to shoot a video for it. So thank you. Remember, like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.